Hey gang, and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to cover how you can get started with tracking your expenses using a spreadsheet. Now, if you're wondering what the heck's a spreadsheet, think of it like a digital sheet of paper organized into rows and columns. This is a table structure for organizing information, and it helps you keep your expense data structured in a way that Word docs or written tools simply can't. Now, in order to create your own spreadsheet, you'll need access to a platform that offers spreadsheet software. The good news is that you can do this for free as of this video with either a Google account, so if you have a Gmail, or a Microsoft account. Since I already have Gmail, I'm going to use Google Sheets for this video. And just to preview what we're going to cover today, these are the steps for beginning to quickly track your expenses in a spreadsheet. First, we're going to prep our sheet, specifically the table that's going to hold our expense information. Next, we're going to populate the sheet with our transactions. Then we're going to categorize all of those transactions so that we can make sense of where our money is going. And finally, we'll do the analysis that will help us then determine where we actually want our money to go. Okay, so here I have my spreadsheet. Remember what I said about this being a table format earlier with rows and columns? Well, that's exactly what we're looking at. You can see our columns, which are organized based on letters, and our rows, which are organized using numbers going down the sheet. So we're going to organize our expenses into 3 columns, including the date of our transaction, a description of what it was, and of course the amount. So let's make each of those categories into our column headers. And just to help separate this row from the rest, let's change the fill color of the row and bold our header text. Okay, gang, now we're on step 2, which is the population phase. In case you haven't already guessed, we're going to populate our spreadsheet table with our expenses next. Now, one way to do this is manually. Copy your expenses if you have them written down somewhere else, or you can even add the Google Sheets app to your smartphone and log your expenses as you go that way. Now, before we keep going, keep in mind that expenses are a deduction and credits or income are money added. So to make things simple for when we finally get to that analysis, enter all your expenses as negative numbers and all your income or other credits, like say you do a big shopping return, as positive numbers. So here, I'm going to make this expense negative. Okay, so that's one way to populate your spreadsheet. But another option is to copy and paste your expenses directly from your online banking or credit card accounts. To do this, you'll want to open your transactions list, so log into your online account for your institution and find the place where your institution allows for exporting your files. Now, the format that you want to export in is typically CSV, but if you don't see CSV as an option, look for Microsoft Excel. Both formats are compatible with Google Sheets. Then in your downloaded file, you can just copy and paste the cells to insert into your tracker. So for example, let's pretend I exported this from my online bank account into Sheets, which is the default spreadsheet software for Mac computers. I can just go in here, delete the columns and things I don't need, and copy and paste all of this into my tracker. And there you have it. All of my banking transactions are now in my personal spreadsheet. Okay, gang, up next is categorizing your expenses. First step is to figure out what you want your expense categories to be. For this example, I'm going to use the categories you see here on the screen. Now, first things first, let's add a new column for assigning each row its own category. Now, I could manually type all of these categories out if I wanted to, but an easier way to ensure that your categories are error and typo free is to just create a dropdown. I'll do this by clicking the cell where I want the dropdown to be, then going to Data Validation. Let's click Add Rule. And the rule we're adding to our cell is a dropdown. So for each dropdown option, I'm just going to add the categories that I need. And I'm also going to add colors to all my categories as well. And there's our dropdown. Now, if I just clear this out by hitting the delete key and then copy and paste this cell down the rest of the column, I'll have my dropdowns available for every row in my table. Now that my system is set up, I'll just go down the list of transactions and categorize all of my expenses. Now, quick data quality note, gang. When you download your transaction history from your bank, you may have rows of transactions that include transfers for payments to other accounts, for example, like your credit card. If you decide to include both your credit card transactions in your spreadsheet along with your checking account, then you can either remove these transfers from your table altogether or just throw them into their own transfer category. This will avoid you double counting when it comes time to add up your expenses. So we won't demo that in today's video, but that is a very real thing when you decide to track your expenses across multiple credit cards and checking accounts. And speaking of, now it's time to analyze our expenses. In this same sheet, I'm going to add some rows above my table so that I can see the total breakdown. Now, there are really two types of totals you want to get from your tracker. Number one is the total amount of your income minus your expenses, aka your net. This is the big question you're trying to answer by doing this exercise at all. The second number or set of numbers that you want to calculate are the totals for each of your categories. This will help you understand the big picture of where your money is going. So let's add those rows in now and start to create our analysis section for our spreadsheet. Okay, so now that we know what totals we want to focus on, how do we actually go about getting there? Depending on your comfort level with spreadsheets and what you're willing to try in this video, you have a few options. One option is to just go through your list and add these expenses manually yourself. This is going to be your slowest option, but also the simplest if you're not comfortable with spreadsheet formulas and really don't want to give them a shot at all. P.S. One way to expedite the manual process is to filter for your different expense categories and highlight the cells with your cursor. This will generate the sum automatically at the bottom right of the sheet, which you can then use to plug into your table. Now, another option, which is my favorite, is to use formulas. Even if you're leaning towards option one, give yourself a chance to try this option out first. So let's do the first formula to figure out our net. In our net total cell, I'm going to add a formula that adds up all the numbers in our amount column. Remember, if you saved all your income and credits as positive numbers and entered all your expenses as negative numbers, then this should automatically give you your net difference. Now, every formula in a cell begins with the equal sign, and the formula function we'll use is sum. Then, to specify which cells get summed in this formula, we'll reference the cell range that contains all of our amounts. So in this case, everything starting from C16 going down. We'll hit enter, and bam, there's our net. Now let's just do a quick manual check to make sure our formula amount matches the sum if we highlight all the cells that are referenced in our range, aka all of the cells from C16 going down. Perfect. Okay, gang, ready for this next one? Up next, we've got to create the formula that's going to add up all of our expense categories. Now, this one is a bit more complex than the last, but it's okay. We are all about growth on this channel. So let's focus on income first. The function we're going to use for this formula is called SUMIF, which basically tells our spreadsheet that it's going to add up or sum a range of numbers if the criteria surrounding that number is met. So in our case, the criteria is going to be the category that we have in column D. So let's start again with that equal sign. Let's type in our SUMIF function. So the first thing we want to look for is the range or the set of cells that the formula is going to check for our category. So in this case, it'll be everything from D16 down. So now the next part of our syntax is the criteria itself. So basically, in this range, everything from D16 down, what do we want to check that's true? Since we're doing our total by income category right now, we're going to tell the formula to check for cases where D16 going down has the word income. And now for the final part of our formula, what is the range of cells that should be summed up in the event that we meet the criteria? So the range is going to be everything from C16 down, similar to what we did for our net function. So let's hit enter. And there you have it. See how the number in our income total matches the one and only income line in our table? This is how we know it's working. Okay, gang, now you're more than welcome to use the same formula that we just did for the income category and go down the list of categories and change your categories manually in each formula cell. However, there's another way to do this that's going to be much faster for you. See where we wrote out our specific income category in quotes? Well, instead of typing that out and then having to type it out for each formula going down our list of categories, I'm going to change the formula to look for whatever text is actually in cell B4. Let's hit enter. So as you can see, this gave us the same result, but the difference is that we're using a more dynamic formula to get there. Now, if it's the same result, you might be wondering, why do this then? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that with a few more tweaks, I can just copy this cell and paste it going down the list of categories and have the category criteria automatically update. So here's how we're going to do that. First of all, in our income cell, I'm going to anchor our ranges for the criteria and the sum. Specifically, I'm going to anchor D16 and C16 by adding $ before the number 16. We'll see in a second why this is important. Okay, let's hit enter. All right, so now that we've anchored our ranges for our totals and our criteria, I'm going to copy this cell and paste it down my list of categories. So now what we're looking at is all of our expense categories correctly added up. Remember that this formula is looking at what's in cell B4 to determine which categories to total. So as I click down the list, notice how the criteria part of the syntax, basically what's in column B, is also moving down the sheet with me. But also notice that our D16 and C16 parts of our formula haven't changed. That's because of the anchoring we did with the $sign, which is important for making sure that we include all of the amounts in our expense table when we're doing this calculation. So gang, a very simple way of automating some of this analysis and saving us a bit of work. So if you didn't try this in your spreadsheet tracker, I'd highly recommend pausing, rewinding, and giving this a shot. And let me know in the comments if you get stuck or have questions. All right, gang, we've done the work of organizing our expenses and categorizing them so that we can calculate where our money went this past month. So now what? Try this out for a few months to get in the rhythm of tracking and also to see how consistent your spending is over time. We'll get into what concrete steps you can take once you have this data at your disposal. But at minimum, remember the most important question this is going to help you answer. Am I spending more than I make, and by how much? Gang, I hope this video encouraged you to get started with tracking today. And to make your lives a little easier, I also have linked to a free template in the video description that you can begin to use if you don't want to build something out on your own. Otherwise, if today's video was helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. And for more tips, be sure to subscribe. Thanks.